Hey, welcome to the series of everything you need to know about Python in simplest possible way. The series of pattern printing. So far, we have seen so many patterns. In this video, we will see how we can actually print this particular pattern. So, if you could carefully observe this pattern, this pattern having some kind of a uniqueness. So, if you could observe this diagonal, we are having all fives. This diagonal, we are having all fours. This diagonal we are having all threes. In this diagonal we have twos. This diagonal we have ones. So this kind of a speciality that this pattern has having. So let's go ahead and try to print this particular pattern. So in order to print this particular pattern, as we know, we cannot actually print in terms of diagonals, but we can actually print in terms of rows. So we need to figure out a way to print in terms of rows, and actually we will get this particular pattern which is having these numbers in terms of diagonals. So let us go ahead and do that. So in order to do that, we will first divide this whole pattern into two different patterns, and we will print them, and combining both of them we will get this whole pattern. For that, what I will be doing is that I will divide this pattern into this above pattern and this below pattern, and I will print them, and combining both of them we will get this whole pattern. So let us go ahead and do that. For that, what I will be doing is that I will take a variable rows, because in this pattern I am considering this above pattern. For that reason, I am taking this rows variable and assigning with 5, because this above pattern we are having 5 rows, right? This is 1 row, 2 row, 3 row, 4 row, and 5 row. Because of that reason, I am taking the rows as 5. So later what I will be doing is that I will take a variable spaces, because if you consider this pattern, before this particular numbers we are having these spaces. So in order to get those spaces, I am taking variable spaces, and I am assigning with rows minus 1. So because in the first row, out of these positions, the first one position is occupied by a number and the remaining positions are spaces. For that reason, I am taking spaces as rows minus 1. Later, what I will be doing is that I will take a for loop for I in range. So why I'm taking this for loop is that in order to generate these many number of rows, we need to iterate through a loop. So for that reason, I am taking a for loop. So first we need to generate a range of values. So the question is, what could be the range of values that we will be generating now? So by observing this pattern, we need to consider on each row a specific number. You could carefully see this diagonal, which is 5 4 3 2 1. We will take this diagonal as a base, and later we will be printing these particular values on each row. For that reason, I need to get these particular diagonal values. For that reason, what I will be doing is that I will start with rows and go till 0, and on each iteration I need to reduce these values by minus 1. So by doing this, we can actually get these numbers, which is 5 4 3 2 1. So let us go ahead and see, are we getting those numbers or not. So if I print, I am getting these numbers as 5 4 3 2 1. Is what the numbers that we are having in this diagonal. So this is what I am doing here. So if we could consider from this onwards, what we will be doing is that we have these many number of rows, right? So on each row, this particular diagonal is starting with this particular I value and going till the value of 5. So for that reason, what we need to do is that we need to start with particular this I value and go till the value of 5. So as we are doing this in every single row, we need to iterate through a loop. So that is what we generally do when we have repeated number of statements, right? So for that reason, what I will be doing is that I will take one more for loop inside of this loop is j in range. For now, what I will be doing is that, as we have discussed, we need to start with this particular I value and go till the value of 5. So for that reason, I will take in this range as I, and we need to go till the value of rows plus 1. So that is what I am mentioning here. So in this for loop, what I will do is that instead of printing this particular I value, I will print the value of j here. So now if I execute this, we can actually get these particular values, which is 5 4 5 3 4 5 and 2 3 4 5 and 1 2 3 4 5. So by comparing these values with this particular values, we are actually getting the exact value that what we have this above pattern. So now the only thing we need to do is that we need to arrange these values so that we could able to get this particular pattern. So for that, what I will be doing is that I will put an end here and I will mention with space, because by default this end parameter having this, by default this print function having this end parameter as new line character, I am overriding the new line character with a single space. So now if I execute this, I can able to get all the values in a single row. But if you consider this pattern, we are getting all these values in the new line. So that is happening after execution of this for loop. This is inner for loop. This new line is generating. For that reason, what I will be doing is that after completion of this inner for loop, I am mentioning a print statement so that whenever this inner for loop completed its execution, a new line gets printed. So now if I execute this, we can able to get this kind of a pattern, which is 5 4 4 3 4 5 2 3 4 5 1 2 3 4 5, which is actually this particular pattern. So, but actually, this is not exactly what we wanted. We also need this kind of a spaces here, right? So, as you if you remember what I have mentioned previously, we need to print these spaces before printing these particular values here. For that reason, what I will be doing is that as and when I enter into the outer for loop, I will print space and I will multiply this space with the spaces variable, because that is what the variable that we have defined in order to keep track of these spaces, right? So for that reason, I am mentioning spaces and I am mentioning this end parameter with nothing, because by default this end parameter having new line character, but we don't want any new line character. For that reason, I am simply mentioning this end parameter with nothing. So later what I will be doing is that, as you can observe in this pattern, the spaces are keep reducing on each iteration. For that reason, after completion of this inner for loop, I am doing some modification to spaces, which is I am reducing the spaces on each iteration. So that is why I have mentioned with minus equal to 1. So now if I execute this, we can able to get the exact pattern that what we have expected in this above pattern. So now I hope you can able to understand how we can generate this above pattern by using this logic. So let us go ahead and see how we can get this particular below pattern, and we will combine both of these patterns. For that reason, what I will be doing is that as like we have printed the above pattern, we will print this particular below pattern. So for that, I will use a for loop to generate these many number of rows here. So I will use a in range. Now we need to generate the range of values. So now here, what are the range of values that we need to generate? As we have taken in this above pattern as this first diagonal as a base to generate this particular rows, in this below pattern, we will take this particular diagonal, which is 4 3 2 1, to generate this particular pattern. So for that, what I will be doing is that I will start with rows minus 1 and go till the value of 1 here. So because of that, I will mention a 0 here, and I will on each iteration, I will decrease this with minus 1. So later what I will be doing is that in order to know what values we are having in k, I will just print the k here. So now we can able to see we have 4 3 2 1. So by observing this pattern, you can conclude that here we are starting with particular value which is 1 and going till the value of k. That is what we have printed here, right? So if we could do that, we can actually get this particular pattern. So for that, on each row we are having these repeated statements, which is starting with 1 and going till the value of k. So that is what I will be doing using another for loop inside of this for loop. So for that, what I will be doing is that I am using a for loop for L in range. So now we need to generate range of values. As we have discussed, it is starting with 1 and going till the value of k. For that reason, I will mention k plus 1. And inside of this, what I will be doing is that instead of printing this particular k, I will print the value L here. So now if I execute this, we can able to get the result as 1 2 3 4, 1 2 3, 1 2 and 1 here. So those are the exact values that we are having in this particular below pattern. So the only thing we need to do here now is to arrange these values, so we will get the pattern. As like we have did in the above pattern, we will do the same things here also. I am mentioning with the end parameter with it's a single space. If I execute this, we can able to get single line. So we need to print spaces, and also we need to print new line character. For that reason, I am printing a new line character here. If I execute this, we can able to get everything in a new line. So we need to get these spaces which are here in order to get this particular pattern exactly. So for that, as and when I enter into this outer for loop, I will print space, and I will multiply this spaces variable, and I will mention this end parameter as nothing. So later, as we can observe, these spaces are getting increased on each iteration. For that reason, I will increase these spaces on each iteration as and when this inner for loop got completion of its execution. So now if we execute this, we cannot exactly get the pattern because of the reason we are using this spaces variable in the above pattern as well as in the below pattern. So we need to do some modification to this spaces variable in order to get the exact pattern. So first we need to know what value we are having in these spaces. So for that reason I am printing these spaces. So we are having the spaces as -1. So but we want the spaces as 1 here, because in this pattern is this below pattern, the spaces need to start with 1 so that we can actually get this line here. So with one space. For that reason we have the difference 2 here, -1 to 0 and 0 to 1. So for that reason what I will be doing is that I will increase these spaces to 2 so that we can able to get the pattern spaces as 1, so we can get the whole pattern. So now if I execute this, so we can able to get the whole pattern. That is what we have expected. So now I hope you can able to understand this logic to generate this particular pattern. If not, I will sincerely suggest you to go through this video once again so that you can able to understand this logic clearly to generate this particular pattern. So now what we will be doing is that we will dynamically take these rows from the input and we will print accordingly. So for that I am using input. I am asking enter rows here. So now if I execute this, it was asking me to enter rows. Now if I give the value, let's say 6 here, so we can able to get the values as 6 in this diagonal, 5 in this diagonal. So every single value is getting in this particular diagonals here. So now if I execute this with let's say 9 here, so still we can able to get the pattern, all these particular values in the coming in this diagonal. So now I hope you can able to understand this logic, and I hope you have found this video interesting. If that is true, hit the like button. In the next video, we will see how we can actually print this particular pattern. So in this pattern, we are getting these values in this particular diagonal is here. So in the next video, we will see how we can actually print this pattern. So to stay updated, subscribe to this channel and turn on the notifications to all so that whenever I upload any video, you will get the notification. So thank you for watching this video. See you in the next one.